Tonight I invite you to journey inward, beyond appearances, beyond circumstance, into the eternal workshop of creation, your own consciousness, for nothing happens by chance. Every event, every encounter, every unfolding of your world is the externalization of an inner state. It is not fate nor fortune, but feeling that molds the clay of life, as within, so without. We are not here to plead with powers outside of ourselves, but to awaken to the truth that the Creator and the creation are one, found within the human imagination. It is there in the secret place that we assume the feeling of our desires fulfilled, and when that assumption hardens into fact, we call it reality. But the seed of every manifestation is sown long before its harvest, sown in the silence of your mind. Tonight you will come to see that the law which governs all creation is simple. Consciousness is the only reality. Change your inner conversation and your world must conform. Accept this truth and you will cease to live reactively. You will rise in dominion. For nothing is accidental and nothing is withheld. All is yours if you will only claim it within. Consciousness is the only reality. This idea, though radical to the reasoning mind, is the foundation of all spiritual creation and the source of every outward experience. All things, from the mundane to the miraculous, emerge from the unseen dimension of consciousness. When we speak of consciousness, we do not mean mere awareness of the physical world or the passive observation of events. We refer to the dynamic creative power that perceives, imagines, and assumes. This power, though invisible, is the first cause of everything visible. It is not reactive but causative. It does not respond to the world, it precedes it. Everything you see, hear, touch, and experience through the senses is a shadow cast by the light of your inner state. The world around you is not independent of your mind. Rather, it is sustained by the beliefs, assumptions, and feelings you hold within yourself. In this sense, the outer world is a mirror, faithfully reflecting your innermost convictions, whether you are aware of them or not. You do not observe reality objectively. You participate in its creation through the lens of your consciousness. Your life, with all its seeming coincidences, triumphs, and trials, is nothing more than the outpicturing of the states of consciousness you habitually occupy. This is not a matter of metaphysical abstraction, but a living principle. When you say, I am, you are engaging with the core of your being, the eternal, formless self that chooses how to be. What you place after I am begins to define your world. Say, I am rich, and if that statement is felt to be true, the world must respond to that truth. Say, I am sick, and that too must externalize. The law does not judge. It does not discriminate between good or bad, right or wrong. It simply brings forth the fruit of whatever is planted in the soil of consciousness. This is why it is said that as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he, not merely in his thoughts, but in the deep felt convictions that lie beneath surface awareness. Most people believe themselves to be at the mercy of circumstance. They accept their environment as fixed and final, forgetting that every condition is but a temporary crystallization of a former state. They observe lack, illness, conflict, and failure, and they accept these as reality, not knowing that they are only effects with causes rooted deep in consciousness. To change the effect, one must go to the cause, and the cause is always internal. Change the state of consciousness from which you view the world, and the world itself must change to reflect your new state. This principle operates whether you know it or not. Whether you consciously create or unconsciously drift, you are always creating, for consciousness never ceases to produce. Most live in a repetitive loop, reliving the same conditions, the same relationships, the same challenges, simply because they continue to occupy the same inner states. They affirm lack by identifying with it. They rehearse failure by expecting it. They confirm limitation by emotionally accepting it as true. But the moment one withdraws attention from a state and refuses to feed it with belief, it begins to wither, and a new state may be assumed. To understand that consciousness is the only reality is to take full responsibility for one's life, not in guilt or blame, but in power. This is not about forcing the outer world through effort or manipulation. It is about resting in the knowing that your being shapes your becoming. You do not need to beg, struggle, or chase, only to assume and live from the state of the wish fulfilled. When this is done sincerely and consistently, the outer must conform, for it has no choice but to obey the command of consciousness. Your present world, however limited it may seem, is not a prison but a projection. It is not an enemy but a messenger, revealing your inner assumptions. To see it as such is to regain dominion. You no longer try to fix effects. You go directly to the source, your own awareness. The senses may argue. The facts may scream the opposite. But if you persist in your inner assumption, if you remain faithful to the unseen reality you have chosen, the seen must yield to it. Reality, as it is commonly understood, is simply the collective agreement of consciousness at any given moment. But because consciousness is infinite and fluid, agreement can be changed. What was once true for you can become false, and what was once out of reach can become your natural condition. Creation is finished. All states exist. You do not create a new reality so much as you select it by entering into it. Every possibility already exists, but it lies dormant until activated by your consciousness. When you accept this as fact, you begin to use your mind in a new way, not to analyze or argue with the world, but to quietly and deliberately assume the feeling of the desired state. You learn to live inwardly with the outcome you desire, regardless of appearances. You realize that to believe in something unseen is not delusion. It is the highest form of intelligence, for all things seen were once unseen. This is the great secret that has been hidden in plain sight. Consciousness is not a passive observer. It is the potter's hand. Your world is the clay. To know this is to stop reacting and begin creating, not through willpower or frantic activity, but through inner alignment with the truth you choose to embody. The change must first occur in consciousness, and then and only then will it appear in form. Imagination creates reality. This truth, often dismissed as fantasy by the rational mind, is the very heart of all manifestation. Imagination is not mere daydreaming or idle thought. It is the divine act of creation itself, the sacred function of consciousness expressing its will. Every form, every condition, every event in the visible world was once imagined. Before the world was, it was imagined into being by the creative power of consciousness. To imagine a thing is to give it life, to set it in motion, to call forth the unseen into the seen. The visible is only the outpicturing of the invisible, and that invisible is imagination. When you imagine with feeling, you enter a state. That state, once assumed, begins to structure reality around it. It draws to itself all that corresponds to it. Just as a seed contains the full blueprint of the tree, so your imagined scene, when fully accepted, contains within it the pattern of its own fulfillment. You do not need to know how it will come to pass. You need only to enter the scene, dwell in it, and accept it as real. Once you do, the laws of this universe, which are orderly and unfailing, begin to reorganize themselves to reflect your assumption. The outer world bends to the inner image, for it is but its echo. Imagination is not a weak substitute for action. It is the cause behind all action. Every invention, every building, every relationship, every movement of history has first been imagined. It is the womb of creation. The artist sees his painting completed in his mind before his brush touches canvas. The architect walks through the finished structure in his imagination before the foundation is laid. The mother holding her child once imagined the life she would nurture. Even the skeptic, denying this truth, uses imagination to envision the world as random, and thus creates experiences that affirm his belief in chaos. Imagination is always at work, whether used consciously or unconsciously, and what is imagined, with conviction, must eventually take form. There is a sacred art to imagination. It begins with clarity. You must know what you want, not vaguely or in passing, but with the conviction of one who sees it clearly. Then you construct a scene, a short, vivid, sensory-rich scene, which implies the fulfillment of that desire, not the process of getting there, but the end itself. If it is love you desire, imagine a moment after the relationship is fulfilled. If it is wealth, imagine what you would do from the state of being wealthy. The key is to place yourself within the scene, not as an observer, but as a participant. You must see through your own eyes, hear through your own ears, and feel the texture of the experience as though it were real now. When you do this in stillness, especially in those moments when the mind is most receptive, such as before sleep or upon waking, you impress this image deeply upon the subconscious, and the subconscious, which does not question or argue, accepts this image as reality, and sets about arranging all necessary events to bring it to pass. You are not forcing the outcome, you are living it inwardly. And because imagination is the only creative power, the outer world has no choice but to reflect the inner scene. Most people imagine only in reaction to the senses. They see lack and imagine more lack. They feel unloved and imagine rejection. They experience delay and imagine further postponement. In doing so, they bind themselves to an endless loop of the same conditions. But those who learn to imagine from the end and not merely about the end, break that cycle. They begin to live from a state that is independent of appearances. They learn that the imagination, once accepted as truth, is more real than what the senses suggest. The senses only report past states of consciousness. Imagination reveals the future state already finished, waiting to be claimed. This is not to deny the outer world, but to reinterpret it. What you now see and touch is the result of former imaginings. To change it, you do not fight or argue with the facts. You rise above them. You enter the world of imagination and construct a new reality, one that feels natural and true. When you persist in that state, regardless of appearances, you give birth to a new expression. This is how all things come into being, not by effort alone, but by inner vision. Imagination is the bridge between the seen and the unseen. It connects the finite self to the infinite source. It is the divine faculty that allows man to create as God creates, not through toil but through vision. The stories you tell yourself in imagination become the scripts of your life. If you do not like the current scene, you must rewrite it. Not on paper but within. You must close your eyes, detach from the evidence of the senses, and enter the world as you desire it to be. You must dwell in the new story, feel it, believe it, love it, until it begins to feel more natural than the one you wish to leave behind. This power is not given to a chosen few. It is the birthright of every being. You are always imagining and therefore always creating. The question is not whether imagination works, but whether you are using it wisely. You may imagine with fear or with faith, with doubt or with certainty, with resentment or with gratitude. But whatever you imagine, especially with deep feeling, will find its way into form. That is the law, and it operates with perfect precision. The universe is not responding to words, but to states of being. And the most powerful tool for entering a state is imagination. Assumption precedes manifestation. This is a law, not a theory. It is the spiritual principle by which all things come into being. Before anything is made visible, it must first be assumed as true within consciousness. The outer world, with all its seemingly random events and outcomes, is nothing more than the unfolding of inner states that were once assumed, whether consciously or unconsciously. To assume something is not to wish for it, nor to hope weakly that it might happen. To assume is to take it as already true, to accept it without question, to feel its reality so vividly that it becomes your natural state. It is an inner conviction that goes beyond thought into experience. You live from the end, not toward it. You feel the result before it appears. And because the universe is reflective, that inner assumption must manifest itself outwardly in time. Most people make the mistake of thinking that they must first see the change before they believe it. But the creative process works in reverse. You do not manifest by observing what is, but by imagining what could be, and assuming it is already so. The seen world is always a result, never a cause. It is an echo, not a voice. Therefore, to try to change the outer world without first changing the inner assumption is to work in vain. It is like trying to change your reflection in the mirror without changing your expression. The assumption must come first, and when it is persistent and dominant, the outer must conform to it. Assumption is the act of faith that bypasses logic. It disregards appearances. It sees the invisible and hears the inaudible. When you assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you are not pretending. You are aligning yourself with the reality that already exists in the unseen. All things exist now in imagination. Every outcome, every possibility, already lives in the infinite potential of consciousness. To assume one is to select it. You are not creating from nothing. You are choosing from all. By assuming it as true and living from that assumption, you call it forth into visibility. What was once invisible becomes visible because your state of consciousness made it so. This is why the law does not care about appearances or logic. It does not care if your current circumstances seem to contradict your assumption. It only responds to the feeling behind the assumption. If you persist in the assumption, the facts must eventually rearrange themselves to match. There is no room for doubt in this process. Doubt is the denial of assumption. It is the belief in what is rather than in what could be. But when assumption becomes your natural response, when it becomes automatic to think, feel, and live as though your desire were already true, then manifestation follows with precision. You may not see immediate results, but delay is not denial. Just as a seed planted in soil takes time to grow and emerge above the surface, so your assumptions take time to crystallize into form. Many abandon their assumption too quickly, swayed by sensory evidence, pulled back into the old state they wish to leave. But if you understand the law, you remain faithful to your assumption even when nothing seems to be happening. You walk by faith, not by sight. You know that the inner reality once assumed must externalize in its own perfect time and way. This principle is not limited to grand desires. It works in the smallest matters of daily life. Every interaction, every result, every chance meeting is a response to your inner state. When you assume love, you radiate it and attract it. When you assume failure, you prepare yourself for it unknowingly and draw it near. When you assume health, even in the midst of illness, you begin to shift your identity, and that shift initiates healing. It is not about denying facts, but about recognizing a higher truth, that consciousness is the only cause, and assumption is the way it operates. Children do this naturally. They assume roles and realities with complete conviction. They do not question whether it is logical to be a pirate or a queen. They simply feel it and become it. And for that moment, it is real. Adults trained by the world to rely on facts and reason lose this creative innocence. But it can be reclaimed. The ability to assume boldly without resistance is not childish, it is divine. It is the way the world is made. To live by assumption is to live creatively, not reactively. You no longer wait for the world to show you who you are. You decide who you are and let the world catch up. You do not seek proof, you provide it by the way you feel, speak, and move. Your assumption speaks louder than your words. It is the vibration you carry, the atmosphere around you. Others respond to it without even knowing why. Life arranges itself around it. The circumstances, people, and events that appear in your life are drawn to the state you occupy. And the state you occupy is determined by what you assume to be true. Assumption is the secret of effortless manifestation. It removes struggle and striving. It allows you to enter the desired state now, without waiting, without conditions. And in doing so, it sets the entire universe in motion to support that reality. You may be tempted to act, to force, to fix, but the most powerful action you can take is to remain faithful to your assumption. Let your inner world be the cause, and the outer world the effect. Let your imagined end be so alive in you that it overshadows the present facts. Let your mind and heart dwell in the outcome, not the problem. Let your assumption guide your steps, shape your speech, influence your mood. Let it become so real within that nothing in the world can shake it. Feeling is the secret. It is not enough to merely think of what you desire, or to visualize it as a distant possibility. You must feel it as though it were already true. Feeling is the lifeblood of creation, the invisible essence that animates the image held in imagination. Every thought, every assumption, every mental picture must be fused with feeling before it can take on form in the external world. The subconscious, which is the builder of your reality, responds not to words but to feelings. It does not reason, argue, or evaluate. It accepts whatever is impressed upon it through sustained emotion. To feel a thing deeply and consistently is to plant the seed of it in the fertile soil of consciousness, where it must in time blossom into experience. When you feel something to be true, regardless of your current circumstances, you align yourself with that version of reality. You may not yet see it, touch it, or hear it with the senses, but inwardly you are living from it. And because the world is a mirror, it must reflect the inner state you occupy. This is not a mechanical process, but a living one. The world responds not to what you want, but to who you are being. Who you are being is shaped by what you feel. If you feel wealthy, you begin to move, think, and act as a person who already possesses abundance. If you feel loved, you radiate that love and become magnetic to it. The feeling must come first. The manifestation follows as a natural consequence. Most people live in the opposite order. They wait for something to change in the outer world so they can feel different on the inside. They wait to receive the thing before they allow themselves to feel the joy, the peace, or the security they desire. But this is to misunderstand the law. The outer world cannot change permanently unless there is first a change within. The feeling of the wish fulfilled must be the starting point, not the end result. To dwell in that feeling, to nurture it with your attention and conviction, is to give the subconscious its instruction. And once the subconscious is impressed, it begins to orchestrate events, relationships, and circumstances to bring about what you have emotionally accepted. Feeling is not surface emotion or fleeting mood. It is the deep inner conviction that something is true. It is the sense of certainty that bypasses logic. You may not know how your desire will come to pass, and that does not matter. The how is not your concern. Your role is to feel the state as real, to rest in it, to let it become familiar. When a state feels natural to you, when you no longer try to make it happen but simply live from it, you have fully assumed it. And because feeling is the secret, that assumption must express itself outwardly in time. To cultivate the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you must learn to quiet the senses and turn inward. In the silence of imagination, you construct a scene that implies your desire is already realized. Then you enter that scene in mind and feel it as if it were happening now. You touch it, hear it, move within it. And most importantly, feel the emotions you would feel if it were actually true. This is not fantasy, it is creation. It is the deliberate use of your divine power to select the state you wish to occupy. The more vividly and consistently you feel this inner reality, the more quickly it will crystallize in form. Resistance only arises when there is a disconnect between what you desire and what you feel. If you think about a goal but continue to feel doubt, lack, or unworthiness, the subconscious takes its direction from the feeling, not the thought. It is your emotional atmosphere that determines what manifests. That is why persistent worry brings more things to worry about, while persistent gratitude brings more to be grateful for. The feeling is the prayer. It is the offering you make to the creative power within, and it is always answered according to its nature. Whatever you feel deeply and dwell upon consistently becomes your experience. You may change your feeling by changing the way you interpret life. Instead of reacting to what is, you learn to feel from what you want. You do not deny the facts, but you refuse to worship them. You allow your inner feeling to be the guide, not the outer condition. If you can sustain the feeling of success in the face of apparent failure, the outer must yield. If you can feel abundance while appearances show lack, the wealth must come. It is not a matter of pretending, but of shifting identity. You become the person who already has the thing, and from that state you act, think, and feel in a new way. Feeling is the bridge between the invisible and the visible. It is the link between desire and fulfillment. It carries your intention into the deeper realms of mind where it can be acted upon. Every great achievement, every profound change begins with a feeling. It is the atmosphere in which your dream grows, the energy that draws your desire closer, the signal you send out into the universe. To master feeling is to master creation. It requires attention, patience, and persistence. But once you realize that you are not waiting on life to bring you something, but rather aligning yourself with it through feeling, you begin to live from a new place of power and certainty. Persistence in assumption creates fact. What you continually assume to be true, even in the absence of visible proof, must eventually solidify into experience. Reality is not shaped by one moment of belief or a fleeting visualization, but by sustained inner conviction. The creative power within responds to the dominant state you occupy over time, not to an occasional thought or wish. It is through repetition, consistency, and faithfulness to the assumed truth that you give it solidity and draw it into form. Every time you return to the feeling of the wish fulfilled, every time you refuse to be swayed by appearances and instead reaffirm the reality of your inner state, you strengthen the foundation upon which your world is built. Each assumption is a seed, and persistence is the care and nourishment that brings the seed to bloom. The mind may wander, the senses may contradict, but the one who holds fast to their inner vision in spite of delay or denial becomes the master of creation. To persist is to remain unmoved by facts that seem to contradict your desire. It is not stubbornness or denial of what is, but the disciplined choice to dwell in what you choose to be true. The world will always test your faith in your assumption. The senses will offer evidence that seems to disprove what you have claimed inwardly. But if you continue to return to your assumption, if you live in it, breathe in it, think from it, and act from it, it must harden into fact. Most people change their assumptions too quickly. They assume abundance for a few days, then see no change and return to thoughts of lack. They imagine success but then entertain doubts when obstacles appear. They wish for love but allow rejection or silence to plant the seeds of fear. This vacillation weakens the creative process. The subconscious does not respond well to uncertainty. It accepts the message that is repeated with feeling and belief, not the one that is whispered and then withdrawn. Persistence is the proof of faith. It is the quiet confidence that your inner world is more real than the current outer circumstances. When you persist in the assumption that you already have what you desire, you begin to see subtle shifts. People treat you differently. Opportunities arise and coincidences occur that align with your inner state. These are not accidents. They are the outpicturing of the reality you have assumed. But you must not be discouraged if the results are slow or invisible at first. Just as water wears down stone, your sustained assumption impresses itself on the deeper layers of reality. The unseen world is always moving, always arranging itself in response to your persistent inner stance. This persistence must be felt, not forced. It is not about tense effort or constant repetition of affirmations. It is about returning again and again to the feeling of the wish fulfilled until it becomes your dwelling place. When your assumption becomes habitual, when it feels natural and familiar, then it has taken root. You may find yourself automatically thinking, feeling, and responding from that state without effort. This is the sign that you are no longer trying to believe but simply living the belief. The law of consciousness responds most powerfully when there is no strain, only assumption resting in confidence. even when appearances remain unchanged. You persist not because you are trying to make something happen, but because you know that it already is. You trust the law to operate as surely as the sun rises. You do not dig up the seed to see if it's growing. You water it with your continued belief. You affirm its presence through your moods, your reactions, and your silent conversations. Each moment you choose to assume your desired state, even in the face of contradiction, you are aligning with the truth that consciousness creates reality. The outer world is always a step behind the inner world, and persistence bridges the gap. There may be moments when doubt arises, when fear seems to pull you back into an old state. But persistence is not about never feeling doubt. It is about returning again to the assumption, no matter what. You acknowledge the fear but do not surrender to it. You remind yourself that the world cannot help but reflect the dominant inner state. You persist, not through force but through choice. You make the decision to stand firm in your vision. You become the one who already has, rather than the one who is waiting to receive. Persistence is not passive. It is a quiet, steady force that reshapes reality. It is the refusal to compromise with appearances. It is the ability to feel the truth of your desire in your bones, even when the evidence says otherwise. You carry the feeling of fulfillment like a sacred fire, never letting it die. You build your world from the inside out, brick by brick, thought by thought, feeling by feeling. And eventually what was once only an idea, a hope, becomes your living experience. Through persistence and assumption, you become the cause rather than the effect. You stop reacting to the world and start shaping it. You choose your state and stay in it until it externalizes. You no longer ask when or how because you know that time and method are not your concern. You remain loyal to your vision and let the unseen intelligence handle the rest. You persist not because you are lacking but because you are sure. You persist because you know that assumption, when sustained, must become fact. Imagination is the workshop of creation, the divine faculty through which all things are brought into being. It is not mere daydreaming or idle fancy, but the primary medium through which consciousness impresses its desires upon the subconscious mind. Everything that now exists began first in imagination, whether it be a work of art, a building, a relationship, or a fortune. The unseen realm of imagination is the womb of reality, and what is vividly and persistently imagined with feeling must eventually appear in the outer world. Imagination is the bridge between the invisible and the visible, the formless and the formed, the idea and its expression. Most people underestimate the power of their imagination because they have been taught to give their attention only to what they can see, touch, and measure. They trust the evidence of the senses above all else and treat imagination as fiction rather than fact. But the truth is that imagination is more real than the physical world, for it is from imagination that the physical arises. What you see with your outer eyes is the shadow of what has already taken place within. If you want to change your life, you must first change your inner imagery. You must learn to dwell in the state you desire to experience and to build it so vividly in imagination that it becomes your new reality. The subconscious mind cannot distinguish between what is real and what is imagined, if the imagined scene is vivid and emotional enough. This is why visualization is such a powerful tool, not because it tricks the mind, but because it speaks the language of the creative force within. When you imagine something clearly with detail and feeling, you are planting that experience into your subconscious as if it has already happened. And since the subconscious is the builder of your world, it will then seek to bring circumstances, people, and opportunities into your life that align with that inner image. You are not merely hoping for a better future. You are creating it in the only place it can be created, within. To use imagination effectively, you must begin by selecting a scene that implies your desire is already fulfilled. It should be a short, simple scene that you can repeat easily, and that evokes the emotional response of already having the thing you want. You then enter that scene in your mind, not as a spectator watching it unfold, but as a participant living it. You imagine with all your senses seeing what you would see, hearing what you would hear, touching what you would touch, and most importantly, feeling what you would feel. This inner scene must feel so natural and so real that in imagination it becomes your reality. And as you continue to return to this scene, as you dwell in it night and day, it becomes your dominant state. The power of imagination is multiplied when it is practiced in a relaxed, drowsy state. Just before sleep and upon waking are powerful moments when the mind is most receptive to suggestion. In these moments, the conscious mind relaxes and the subconscious is open. If you impress your desired scene upon your imagination at this time, it sinks deeply into your subconscious where it can take root. You do not need to struggle or strive, you simply accept the reality of your desire in imagination and allow it to unfold naturally in your life. Imagination is not limited by time, space, or logic. It allows you to transcend present circumstances and live from the end, from the completed desire. It frees you from the tyranny of appearances and gives you access to a higher truth, the truth that consciousness creates reality. In imagination, you can be anywhere, have anything, do anything. You are not confined to your current conditions because imagination is always greater than fact. When you live in imagination, you are stepping into the role of creator. You are no longer reacting to life. You are directing it. The key is to believe in the reality of your inner world. The more you honor your imagination, the more powerful it becomes. It begins to respond to your intention with greater clarity. Your inner visions become more vivid, and your emotional responses to them deepen. You begin to recognize that what you imagine is not separate from you. It is you in another state of being. Every imagined state is a doorway into a new version of yourself. And as you persist in imagining, you begin to embody that version. Your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors shift to match the new identity you have assumed in imagination. When doubts arise or when the outer world contradicts your inner vision, you return to imagination. You remind yourself that the senses follow. They do not lead. You reaffirm your seeing. You feel it again and you allow yourself to be nourished by the reality of the unseen. You are faithful to the world within because you know that it precedes the world without. You choose imagination over fear, vision over fact, conviction over doubt. You train your mind to live in the possibility until the possibility becomes visible. You no longer ask if your desire will manifest, because you have already seen it, felt it, lived it in imagination, and therefore you know that it must be so. Imagination is not a weak or secondary power. It is the creative center of your being, the place where all things begin. It is sacred and powerful, and it responds to your direction. When you use it consciously with feeling and faith, you become the architect of your experience. You step into alignment with the divine nature within you, the nature that calls those things which are not as though they were. You begin to experience life not as something happening to you, but as something happening through you, shaped by the images and emotions you hold within. Gratitude is the energy of fulfillment, the vibration of already having received, and the key that unlocks the doors of unseen blessings. When one lives in the spirit of gratitude, they are no longer pleading for change, but acknowledging the reality of the change that has already taken place within. It is not a reaction to something that has happened in the outer world, but a declaration that something has shifted internally. Gratitude aligns you with the frequency of your desire because it assumes that the gift is already given, the prayer already answered, the state already attained. In expressing sincere gratitude for what has not yet appeared in form, you are claiming possession of it in consciousness, and what is claimed within must in time reflect without. Gratitude is not limited to polite thanks for obvious blessings or courteous acknowledgement of favorable outcomes. True gratitude is a creative act, a mental and emotional alignment with the truth of the wish fulfilled. It is the inner posture that affirms, "This is mine. It is done. I am already that." In this way, gratitude is the evidence of faith. It does not look to the outer for confirmation. It provides its own confirmation through the felt sense of appreciation. You are not waiting for the outer world to give you a reason to feel grateful. You become grateful now, and in doing so, you call into form the experiences, conditions, and relationships that correspond to that gratitude. When you practice gratitude from the end, thanking life for what you have already received in the unseen, you shift your state of being. You move from the vibration of lack and longing into the vibration of completion. This shift is not theoretical but energetic, and consciousness being the only cause, that energetic state must be mirrored back to you. Every moment of true gratitude is a moment of creative power. It is not a passive emotion but an active declaration of identity. You are saying, "I already have it, I already am it." In this way, gratitude becomes the language of creation, speaking directly to the subconscious in a way that reason and effort cannot. This is why gratitude can transform circumstances more powerfully than worry, force, or resistance. Where resistance tightens and delays, gratitude softens and allows. Where fear pushes away the desired state, gratitude draws it near. It opens the heart and calms the mind, creating space for the new to enter. It suspends the need to control and replaces it with trust. You begin to live as though the desire is already realized, and from that living, the world begins to reflect back to you the forms that match your feeling. Gratitude thus becomes not only a response to life, but a tool to shape it. To embody this principle is to infuse gratitude into every aspect of your inner world. You become thankful for the answered prayer before it shows up, for the healing before the symptoms vanish, for the opportunity before the door opens. You speak words of thanks in the silence of your own mind and feel the warmth of appreciation in your chest even when nothing has changed around you. This inner state becomes your home, your resting place, your dwelling. You return to it again and again, not because you are trying to force manifestation, but because you are choosing to live from a higher truth, the truth that what you seek is already yours. Gratitude also dissolves the illusion of separation. When you are truly grateful, you are not in want. You are not reaching, striving, or lacking. You are one with your desire, and in that unity all fear dissolves. Gratitude is the recognition that you and your desire are not apart, but already joined in consciousness. This joining is the seed of manifestation. When you live from this place, the need for struggle falls away. You are no longer trying to become something, you are simply being that which you already are. And because the world is always a mirror, it must show you more of what you are being. Practicing gratitude in this way does not require perfect conditions or ideal circumstances. It is most powerful when practiced in the midst of contrast. When you can be thankful in the face of challenge, you are declaring that the inner truth outweighs the outer appearance. You are refusing to let the temporary dictate the eternal. You are anchoring yourself in the unseen and calling forth a new reality. The more consistently you can hold this state, the more your life begins to shift around you. Gratitude becomes your atmosphere, and your world rearranges itself to match it. It is also worth understanding that gratitude must be felt, not merely spoken. The words carry little weight if they are empty of emotion. But when the feeling of gratitude rises up naturally within, it changes the texture of your entire being. You walk differently, speak differently, think differently. You become a magnet to good, because your vibration is one of abundance and joy. This energy is unmistakable, and it influences everything around you. Others respond to it, life responds to it, and the path ahead begins to open effortlessly. In moments of doubt, you can return to gratitude as a compass. It centers you, grounds you, and reminds you of who you truly are. It brings your focus away from what appears to be missing and back to the truth of what is already present. And when you focus on what is present in imagination and spirit, rather than what is absent in form, you feed the very state you wish to grow. Gratitude thus becomes the soil in which all desires take root. It is the silent partner of imagination, the natural companion to feeling, and the final seal of assumption. In the silence of your inner world lies the blueprint of your life. And every moment you dwell in the feeling of your fulfilled desire, you are writing that blueprint anew. There is no fate outside of your consciousness, no destiny apart from the states you choose to occupy. The law of conscious creation does not demand effort, sacrifice, or struggle. It requires only that you take responsibility for your inner conversations, that you persist in your assumptions, that you use your imagination boldly, and that you give thanks before you see. Nothing happens by accident. Every event, every meeting, every success or setback is drawn to you by the invisible hand of your inner state. The power to change your world is not in what you do, but in what you are. Be still. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and let the law work. The world rearranges itself around your sustained belief. You are the operant power. You are the creator. And what you dare to imagine as true will become your experience.
You were never meant to bow to the opinions of the world. You were never created to shrink or to doubt your own power. The moment you were imagined in perfection, not as someone hoping to become great, but as greatness itself, clothed in form. The world will try to tell you who you are. It will whisper limitations. It will present facts and figures, patterns and logic. But those who know their true nature are not moved by appearances. They are not shaken by the outer world, for they command it from within. You do not compete because no one compares. You do not seek validation because you are the standard. You are not waiting to be chosen because you are the chooser. Every scene in your life is your creation. Every delay is your permission. Every victory is your assumption made manifest. You act as the best not because you hope to be. It is because you are and always have been. No one outranks you in your world. No one possesses what you do not have access to. You walk with the knowing that the power which shapes reality is within your very being, and when you imagine, you do not beg, you decree, you declare. You assume with the quiet authority of one who knows that nothing is denied to the one who believes. You are not here to wonder if you're worthy. You are here to remember. You are the power that calls the unseen into form. You are the law, the architect, the source. And when you decide a thing is done, the world bends quietly to your will. So carry yourself as the one who cannot fail, not from pride, but from the truth. When you walk into a room, understand, it is your world they are in. When you speak, the atmosphere responds. When you imagine, the future rewrites itself. You don't chase, you attract. You don't hope, you know. There is no one above you, no one ahead of you, no one who can do what you came here to do. You are it, the first, the finest, the foundation and the fulfillment. And you move through life not needing permission, not requiring applause, but knowing that all things must obey the voice of the one who knows who they are. You move through this world not as a servant to circumstance, but as its master. You are not reacting, you are initiating. You are not at the mercy of time, of luck, of others' opinions, because you are the only cause in your reality. You do not beg life to bless you. You realize that life has no choice but to follow your assumption. And when you walk with that level of certainty, the very fabric of existence rearranges itself to reflect your inner stance. There is no competition in the mind that knows itself. You do not compare because you are incomparable. You do not look to others to decide what is possible for you. You are not the echo, you are the voice. You are not second to anything or anyone. Everything you touch is touched by power. Everything you imagine is drawn toward you by the unbreakable law of your own being. You are not the effect, you are the cause, and the cause never has to ask permission. The cause simply is. You are that cause. When others wait, you declare. When others wonder, you assume. When others question if they are ready, you step forward as the answer. The power you carry is not loud or desperate. It is still and complete and final. You are not moved by appearances, because appearances are old news. They are echoes of past assumptions. They are not your concern. Your concern is the feeling, the knowing, the inner state from which all things flow. And you hold that state, not with force, but with calm, relentless confidence, because you know the world cannot help but obey the one who walks in truth. You do not need to strive, you do not need to chase. What you assume to be true becomes inevitable. This is your inheritance, this is your secret. Others may call it arrogance, but it is alignment, it is identity. It is dominion, and the one who knows this doesn't need to argue or prove. They simply are, and everything else rearranges accordingly. People show up, opportunities emerge, delays dissolve, doors open. Not because you begged, but because you assumed it was done. You act as the best because you are the best. And this knowing is not about superiority over others. It is about superiority over doubt, over fear, over limitation. It is about transcending the illusion that you are ever less than the fullness of power expressing itself in form. When you rise in this knowing, nothing can stay the same. Your world will mirror you. Your circumstances will reflect you. Your life will reveal the image you hold within. You do not shrink to make others comfortable. You do not hide your light to protect the fragile ego of those who have not yet awakened. You shine, and in shining, you call others to remember that they too are the source. You become the permission they've been waiting for. You become the evidence of what is possible when someone truly knows. There is no need to lower your voice, no need to downplay your gift, no need to dim your certainty. You were never meant to fit in. You were born to stand out, to lead, to embody a frequency that rewrites the rule. You do not explain yourself. You do not overexpress. Your being is the statement. Your presence is the proof. Your life speaks louder than words because it is authored by a consciousness that has claimed its throne. You are not a student of power. You are power remembering itself. And when you remember, you no longer wait for signs, confirmations, or applause. You walk in the end result. You live in the fulfillment. You feel from the place where it is already done. This is not fake it till you make it. This is assume it because you are it. And in that assumption, you collapse time. In that assumption, you bend the laws of probability. In that assumption, you break free from the collective agreement of limitation and enter into the individual realization of limitlessness. This is your game, this is your canvas, this is your masterpiece. And you do not ask the world if it agrees. You show the world what happens when one soul fully claims their divinity. Every cell in your body responds to the thoughts you allow. Every event in your life bends to the story you tell yourself. You are not passive. You are not powerless. You are not waiting for permission to rise. You were born risen, and the moment you choose to remember, the moment you decide, everything begins to move in your favor. Not because you earned it, but because it is law. You become what you believe yourself to be, always, without exception. You speak from the end. You move as if the goal is already complete. You do not try to become. You live as if you already are. And this is the secret that separates the awakened from the asleep. While the world wonders how and when, you decide now, you feel now, you live now. Because the moment you fully occupy the state of the one who already has it, the outer world bows. It must, it is law, and you are the lawgiver. You do not need signs to believe. Your belief is the sign. You do not wait for evidence. Your assumption creates it. You do not ask life to show you what's possible. You tell life what is inevitable. You are the best, not by competition, not by comparison, but by alignment. And this is not up for debate. This is not subject to opinion. It is a fact in the world you command. You are not one of many. You are the one, the origin, the beginning, the creative force behind all that you see. You do not move with hesitation. You move with certainty, and in that certainty, doors swing open. In that certainty, obstacles dissolve. In that certainty, time compresses, and the impossible becomes the obvious. You are not trying to become. You are revealing who you've always been. And the moment you own that identity, the moment you embody it fully, everything you once chased begins to chase you. You are the magnetic field. You are the gravitational pull. You are the center point of every miracle waiting to happen. You are the blueprint, the template, the divine design in motion. You do not ask how. You declare it done. You do not ask when. You assume it now. You do not wait for change. You embody change, and the world follows. Let others doubt. Let others worry. Let others measure themselves against the noise. You move in silence and in power. You do not need to prove your greatness. You need only be it. The world responds to who you believe you are. And when you decide that no one is greater, no one is higher, no one is more qualified to receive the fullness of life than you, the universe delivers. You are not here to be small. You are not here to apologize for your gift. You are not here to water down your power. You are here to express the fullness of your design, to stretch the limits of what's possible, to walk as the one who knows. You are the best, and you act like it, not from ego, but from essence. Not from pride, but from truth. Your assumption is the portal, your feeling is the key, your identity is the foundation, and when all three align, nothing can be withheld from you. Nothing can delay what is already yours. Nothing can stop the rise of the one who has remembered their origin. You are that origin, you are that rise, and your life, your reality, your every experience will reflect this knowing again and again in ways that leave no room for doubt. So continue, assume boldly, move as if the world is already yours, because it is. Speak as if your word creates reality, because it does. Carry yourself as if no one outranks you, because no one does. The outer world is just your mirror, and the one you see in it now, today, forever, is the best, always was, always will be. You were never made to hope timidly, to tiptoe through life as if it could break you. You were made to command, to stand with such unwavering belief in yourself that the world must bow. This is not about arrogance. It is about alignment. You have no rivals, no equals, because no one else lives in your consciousness. No one else wears your name, breathes your breath, walks in the authority you have over your reality. There is only you, and when you realize this, you stop asking, stop waiting, stop hesitating. You decide, you declare, and you dominate. You do not need a sign from the sky, a special date on the calendar, or an outside voice to validate your readiness. You are the sign, you are the moment, you are the voice that says now. The world is a stage, and the scenes you live are not happening to you. They are arising from you. Every delay, every breakthrough, every pattern in your life, it is not random. It is the reflection of the state you have dared to occupy. So when you decide you are the best, that decision ripples through every corner of your reality, collapsing limitations and revealing pathways you once thought impossible. You do not need to climb to greatness. You descend into it from the heights of your inner vision. You see it first within, you assume it, you feel it as already done, and because you do, the world rearranges itself accordingly. What others call coincidence, you call law. What others call fate, you call choice. You are not subject to the winds of chance. You are the wind itself. You are the fire, the foundation, the fixed point around which everything else moves. You don't need agreement. You don't need applause. You don't need anyone to see it for you, because when you see it for yourself, clearly, boldly, consistently, no one can stop it from unfolding. The outer world doesn't create the inner world. It obeys it, it reflects it, and when you carry yourself as the best, speak as the best, think as the best, then being the best is not an outcome, it's a given, it's a law made flesh. You walk into every space knowing that you are the most powerful presence there. Not because of ego, not because you wish to dominate, but because you have remembered the truth that others have forgotten. You are not just in the image of greatness, you are greatness expressing itself through form, voice, vision, and action. And because you know who you are, the world takes shape around your conviction. The world is always asking, who are you willing to be? And when you answer that question with unwavering identity, when you say, I am the first, the finest, the fulfillment, then your life must rise to match that tone. There are no exceptions. There are no maybes. Only reflections of who you've dared to embody. You are not here to play small, not here to apologize for your power, not here to soften your edges to be more palatable to those still living in fear. You are here to walk in power. You are here to be the standard, the blueprint, the example of what happens when someone stops pretending and starts knowing, when someone stops asking and starts declaring, when someone stops trying and starts being. You are the answer, not the question. You are the fulfillment, not the seeker. You are the cause, not the effect. So when you speak, your world listens. When you assume, reality forms around your vision. When you decide everything moves, that's not fantasy. It's law, and the law is always working. It does not sleep. It does not falter. It reflects you with perfect precision. So the only thing that ever needs to change is you. Not your worth, not your value. Those are eternal. What changes is your level of recognition, your level of embodiment, your willingness to own who you truly are. So you walk in the room and everything shifts. Why? Because you decided it would. Because you entered it not wondering if you'd be chosen, but knowing that you choose. You don't seek to be accepted. You accept yourself and everything else follows. You don't hope to be noticed. You radiate and the world takes notice without you ever having to try. You don't push, you don't force, you simply are, and that is more powerful than any effort. When others strive, you settle into the truth. When others hustle to prove their worth, you rest in your assumption. You've already won before you even begin, because in your mind, it's already done. The race was over the moment you believed. The deal was sealed the moment you assumed the feeling of it. The doors were unlocked the moment you moved as if they were never closed. That is the level of authority you carry. You don't rise by effort. You rise by identity. And when you embody the identity of the best, you are no longer waiting for the moment. You are the moment. You don't ask the world to open up for you. You walk as if it already has, and because you walk that way, it must. You lead with energy, with conviction, with unshakable inner authority. That is the mark of someone who remembers who they are. And when you remember, you no longer live by the rules of delay, doubt, or denial. You live by the rule of now. You are not a servant to fear. You are not a victim of circumstance. You are not beholden to anyone else's timeline. You don't live in reaction. You live in assumption. You live in vision. You live in the frequency of inevitability, because when you speak, it is done. When you believe, it is created. When you persist, it is revealed. This is not about pretending to be something you're not. It's about daring to be what you've always been. Every time you look within and choose the version of you that feels like power, like confidence, like clarity, you are stepping into the throne that was always yours. You are not becoming great. You are remembering that you already are, and the world has no choice but to remember with you. Everything in your life bends to your identity, not sometimes, not eventually. Always. That's why you don't chase results. You chase alignment. You don't try to fix the outer. You adjust the inner, because the outer is just the echo, the mirror, the response, and you are the origin, the center, the command. You are the one who walks before the blessing, and the blessing follows. You are the one who holds the vision, and the vision becomes flesh. You are the one who dares to believe when no evidence exists, and in doing so, you become the evidence. That is who you are, the embodiment of certainty in a world still addicted to doubt, the expression of divine force in a realm trained to settle, the reminder that greatness doesn't shout, it simply is. So when you wake up, you don't ask what the day will bring. You decide what it will be. You don't check the forecast. You declare your climate. You don't measure your power by the reactions of others. You measure it by the boldness of your assumption. And if your assumption is that you are the best, then the world will reflect back a reality where that truth is evident in every area of your life. You are not waiting for it to happen. You are the happening. You don't wish for transformation. You embody it. You are the point of power, the place of change, the command center of a reality that flows from thought, from feeling, from identity. The moment you hold that identity with confidence, everything else follows. Let them watch, let them wonder, let them question how you move the way you move. You owe no explanation. Your life will speak for itself. Your world will testify. Your results will make the announcement. Not because you forced it, but because you decided, you assumed, and you persisted. You are the best, you know it, you live it, you breathe it, and every part of your world reflects it back. Not because you need to convince anyone, but because reality must mirror the image you hold within. And the image you hold, unshakable, limitless, final, you don't become, you be, and in that being, everything else is drawn into place effortlessly, inevitably, undeniably. There is no power outside of you that can define what you become unless you allow it. No opinion, no setback, no past moment has authority in your world unless you give it voice. And you've stopped giving power to things that do not know who you truly are. You've stopped bowing to the illusion of delay, to the noise of judgment, to the weakness of comparison. You have chosen once and for all to stand in your own dominion. And from this place everything begins again, not out there but in you. You walk differently when you know the world is responding to you. You speak differently when you understand your word is law. You breathe differently when you understand you are not the product of chance. You are the author of every page. You are not waiting for change. You are the source of it. You are not chasing greatness. You embody it. You don't need motivation when you live from identity. You don't need validation when you live from truth. You don't even need proof, because you already know. This is the realm of knowing beyond the senses. This is where reality becomes soft clay in the hands of the one who dares to assume it is theirs. You have stopped asking life for permission. You have stopped wondering if you're worthy. You have realized there is no jury, there is no test. You are the decider, the selector, the one who chooses and becomes. You don't become worthy by what you do. You are worthy because of what you are. And what you are is the original source from which all things come. You have reached the point where effort is replaced by embodiment. You no longer force outcomes. You occupy the identity from which outcomes cannot help but emerge. You live as if the world is already yours, and it is. You feel as though the end is already written, and it is. You carry yourself as the answer, not because you wish to be. It's because you know you are. You've left behind the old mind that needed proof, needed evidence, needed others to agree. You've stepped into the mind of the Master, where creation begins with a decision and ends in inevitable manifestation. Others may say, but look at what is, but you say, look at what must be, because what is only the shadow of past thoughts, and you no longer dwell in the past. You are not defined by what has been. You are defined by the state you now occupy, and in this state everything is new, everything is yours, everything is possible. Not someday, not eventually, but now. Not when the world changes, but when you do. And you have. You've taken your crown off the shelf and placed it where it belongs. You've stopped shrinking for comfort. You've stopped apologizing for your radiance. You've stopped making others comfortable at the cost of your own identity. Because you've realized no one benefits from your smallness, but everyone rises when you do. When you walk in truth, you lift the whole world without effort. You don't need to convince anyone. You don't need to explain your certainty. You just be, you move, you assume, and in that still, calm, unshakable posture of knowing, mountains move. Time bends, the unseen takes shape, not because you begged it to, but because you assumed it would. This is how you were meant to live, not chasing, not pleasing, not proving, but creating. There is no one who can do it like you, no one who can bring what you bring, no one who can stand where you stand. And so you no longer compare, you no longer reach sideways, you reach inward, and from there everything flows. Every answer, every breakthrough, every opportunity. It all unfolds from the identity you've chosen to wear. And the identity you wear is not one of doubt or fear or need. It is one of command, one of certainty, one of divine finality. You are the image of the fulfilled desire. You are the embodiment of the result. You do not look to others to measure your worth. You don't look outside at all, because you know that every outer thing is a mere echo. It's the residue of former belief, and you've upgraded, you've leveled up. You've replaced doubt with certainty, replaced waiting with being, replaced hoping with knowing, and now the world reflects your new tone. You are not intimidated by time, you are not controlled by delay. You know that the moment you fully occupy a state, the bridge of incidents begins to form. You don't need to force it. You don't even need to see the full path. You just persist, and the path unfolds. It must, because the law doesn't serve the world. It serves you. The moment you choose a new identity, the law sets it in motion. It cannot fail, because it is you. You walk with ease, not because life is always easy, but because you are no longer wrestling with your reflection. You're no longer reacting to shadows. You've dropped the inner resistance. You've released the self-judgment. You've stopped asking if you're good enough and started declaring, I am. You've made peace with your greatness. You've come home to your highest self, and now everything bends around that. You are magnetic, not because of what you do, but because of who you are. You don't try to attract. You are attraction itself. Your very being radiates fulfillment. Your energy speaks before your words ever can. And people, situations, and blessings respond because energy recognizes itself. You're not pretending, you're remembering. You're not acting, it's authenticity. You are no longer learning who you are expressing it. And as you express it, life becomes a mirror held to your assumption. The more you assume your power, the more power reflects back. The more you assume your success, the more successful you become. You don't have to climb ladders, you are the ladder. Every step you take is a statement. This is who I am, this is what is mine, this is what I allow. You walk into rooms with a presence that needs no introduction. You hold conversations from a place that doesn't seek agreement. You make moves without explaining, because every move is already justified by the certainty that it is yours to make. You're not asking anymore. You're choosing. You're not knocking on doors. You're walking through walls, because once you assume it's done, Reality has no choice but to follow. You're no longer attached to outcomes because you live from the outcome. You're no longer obsessed with results because you are the result. You're no longer ruled by emotion because your state is stable, and from that stability flows your world. Others may fluctuate, others may react, but you remain still and sovereign, knowing that nothing is outside your control when you take full control of you. This is what it means to act as the best, not because you want to prove it, but because you finally see it, because you've looked inward and seen the throne that was always there, because you've realized that no one gives you this power. You accept it. You don't audition for your destiny. You inhabit it. You don't strive for your greatness. You own it. And everything around you, from the smallest interaction to the grandest opportunity, will start reflecting the version of you that you have dared to assume. It is all an echo, and you are the sound. The source, the starting point, the center from which all things flow. So you continue, you persist. You don't waver when the old reality lingers a little longer. You don't flinch when the mirror takes a moment to catch up. You remain in your identity, you hold the feeling, you dwell in the end, because that is the only thing that matters. Who are you now? Who are you willing to be? And the answer, unwavering, undeniable, unshakable, I am the best. I have no equal. I was born this way, and I move accordingly. You do not step into the scene to ask for your part. You arrive as the author, writing the outcome before the world has time to respond. This is what it means to live from the end, to exist in the certainty of what is already done. You do not blink when others hesitate. You do not shrink when others doubt. You do not wait for the confirmation, because you are the confirmation. You are the evidence of the unseen, walking boldly as the result before it has been spoken aloud by anyone else. There is nothing outside of you greater than what lives within you, nothing louder than your own assumption, nothing more real than the inner world you have claimed as true. You no longer bow to appearances. You've realized appearances bend, they yield, they rearrange, they follow the frequency you decide to live on, and you live on the highest frequency of all, the state of knowing, the state of completion, the state of it is already mine. You don't flinch when the old story tries to whisper. You silence it not with effort, but with presence, the presence of your new identity. The old must dissolve in the heat of your sustained assumption. The noise fades because you no longer feed it. You feed only the vision, only the outcome, only the self that walks without hesitation, without compromise, without apology. The self that does not become, but already is. You're not here to convince anyone to see you. You are here to see yourself so clearly, so vividly, so continuously that the entire universe has no choice but to align. You are no longer reactive. You are causative. You are the origin of everything you experience, and because of that, you've stopped blaming and started building. You've stopped hoping and started being. You've stopped wondering when it's coming and started asking, who must I be to match it? And when that answer comes, you step into it fully. You understand now that the only permission slip you ever needed was your decision. The only initiation was belief. The only path was presence. The only process was remembrance. And so, you've left behind the rituals of the old world, the performance of trying to prove your value. You've stopped auditioning for what already belongs to you. You walk differently, speak differently, think differently, not because you changed anything out there, but because you became different in here. There is nothing arrogant about knowing your worth, nothing shameful about walking in your fullness. You're not here to dim, to blend, to soften your edges so others feel comfortable. You are here to shine, and by doing so, remind others of their own power. Your certainty is not a threat. It is a map, a mirror, a living invitation to others who have forgotten what lives inside them. The world will reflect what you persist in being, and you've chosen the highest. You've chosen to be the peak, not in comparison to others, but in expression of your own divine origin. You've chosen to live as the version of yourself who no longer waits to feel worthy. You've decided you are. You've chosen the version of you that walks with no need to justify their radiance. You've decided that you are the standard and the world will meet it. You are not shaped by conditions, you shape them. You are not here to see what happens, you declare what happens. You don't wait for the door to open, you are the door. You are not intimidated by time, because time obeys the state you occupy. You are not manipulated by circumstance, because you've transcended it. You don't live by effort, you live by alignment. You don't grind in the outer, you glide in the inner, and the more you persist in that identity, the more effortless life becomes. Not because you avoid action, but because every action is born from knowing, not doubt. Every move you make is not a reach, but an extension of what is already settled within you. You don't chase money, love, success, approval, because you've already assumed that you are the source of it all. You've taken your eyes off the reflection and placed them back on the flame within. You are the flame, you are the mountain, you are the immovable force, and when you decide something is yours, it must find its way to you, not through striving, but through law. Through resonance, through magnetic embodiment. You've stopped chasing and started attracting, not passively, but through the full conviction of your being. You've stopped rehearsing outcomes and started living from them. You've stopped begging and started creating. When you speak, your words do not fall to the ground. They are carried by the current of certainty. They create, they command, they construct, and the world listens, not because it has a choice, but because it must obey the one who knows who they are. You are that one. You are the living proof that belief shapes reality, that inner vision becomes outer fact. You are the one who decided, and because you decided, life obeyed. Let them talk, let them wonder, let them analyze the mechanics. You have no need for formulas. Your formula is identity. Your formula is, I already am, and when you walk in that, the path forms beneath your feet. The doors open, the money flows. The recognition arrives, the opportunities appear, not as rewards, but as reflections, reflections of the one who dared to live from the highest assumption. You are not ordinary, you never have been. You are the exception to every so-called rule. You are the one who moves through limitation like it's smoke. You are the one who transforms atmospheres, who walks in rooms and changes the temperature. You are not waiting for the stars to align. You've realigned yourself, and the stars must now move to match you. You've stopped consulting fear. You've stopped asking permission. You've taken your place, and from this place everything is yours by right of consciousness. You no longer need to work to feel worthy. You work from the overflow of your already settled worth. You no longer need to seek to feel loved. You move as the embodiment of love itself. You are not an empty vessel waiting to be filled. You are the ocean, the well, the abundance, and you've stopped negotiating your value. You've stopped watering yourself down. You've stopped explaining your magic to those still living in limitation, because you know what is yours will hear your frequency. What belongs to you will not pass you by. Not because you chase it, but because you are it. This is the truth you live in now. You don't entertain lower versions of yourself. You don't flirt with old patterns. You don't revisit the graveyards of former identities. You rise, you ascend. You dwell only where the air is thin and the view is clear. You speak only what you want to see. You feel only what confirms your truth. And because of this, life becomes more and more effortless, more exact, more glorious, because you've taken your rightful place as the operant power. And when you move this way, everything responds, not in theory, but in manifestation, not someday, but now. You are no longer practicing, you are performing. You are no longer preparing, you are being, and the world has taken notice, not because you demanded it, but because you became undeniable. You have mastered the only truth that matters. As I am within, so it must be without. And from that place, nothing is impossible. Nothing is out of reach. Nothing is too big, too far, or too late. Because when you live from the end lives in you, and the end is always victory, always fulfillment, always more than enough. Always you in your highest form, being, doing, having everything that already belongs to you, not through struggle, but through assumption, not through fear, but through fire, not through need, but through knowing. You are not rising, you have risen. You are not finding yourself, you are expressing yourself. You are not reaching for it, you are radiating it. And the world is only just beginning to reflect the brilliance of the one you've decided to be. You don't ask anymore if it's working. You don't check the outer to confirm the inner. You've settled it. It is done, and when it is done in you, it must be done in the world. That's not philosophy. That's not a wish. That's law, that's creation. That's how you live now. You've stepped out of the cycle of waiting and wondering and stepped into the current of command. You don't lean on time to do what your own assumption has already secured. You don't lean on circumstances to approve what your identity has already authorized. There is no wavering. There is no second guessing. You don't wake up hoping to feel powerful. You wake up knowing you are power. You walk into situations as the answer, not the question. You no longer linger at the edge of possibility. You dive into the certainty of your becoming, and because you dwell in that state, the world becomes your reflection. Not because it pities you, not because it favors you, but because it must echo the one who has assumed the position. You are not a student of your circumstances anymore. You are the teacher of your reality. You are the voice that shapes the landscape. You are the energy that bends what was to make room for what is now being declared. The old story has no oxygen in your presence. You no longer feed it. You no longer revisit it. You have outgrown it, and because you have outgrown it, life must offer you something new. You have no rival because you do not compete. You do not compare. You are not moved by trends, nor are you swayed by opinion. You are unmoved, unbothered, unshakable, because you know no one can be you. No one can offer what you offer. No one can walk the way you walk, and that is not arrogance. That is the truth. You are the only one who can live your purpose. And now that you've accepted that, your steps have power, your presence has weight, your decisions have force. There is no hesitation when the knowing is complete. There is no back and forth when you've burned the bridges behind you. You have gone all in. You are fully identified with your highest self. You have no need for the past. You have no loyalty to limitation. You are married to the version of you that already has the results. And that bond is unbreakable. That assumption is your covenant, and the world will shape itself around that vow. You are not interested in rehearsing the pain. You're too busy embodying the promise. You don't need others to believe in you. You don't even need them to understand you. You are belief, you are understanding. You walk with the frequency of completion, and because of that, you attract outcomes that others think take time, take hard work, take chance. But you know it was never about time, it was never about odds, it was never about effort. It was always about state, and you've chosen your state. You've chosen to dwell in the palace of certainty. You've chosen to feast at the table of already done. You've chosen to speak from the throne, not from the pit. You've chosen to move as the ruler of your domain, not the victim of your environment. And because you've chosen this, life must submit, not out of cruelty, but out of law, out of alignment, out of resonance. You are no longer obsessed with how. You've let go of the mechanics. You've surrendered the obsession with control. Because you understand, you are the control. You are the cause, you are the source, and as you sustain the vibration, the unseen goes to work. You don't know when, you don't care how. All you know is that your word does not return void. All you know is that your assumption is creation. The world will test the strength of your identity. It will ask if you truly believe. It will flash fragments of the old reality in your face. But you don't react. You don't flinch. You don't retreat. Because you are not here to negotiate with shadows. You are not here to argue with echoes. You are not here to question what you've already claimed. You stand, you stay, you radiate, and everything bends. You don't build in the outer anymore. You build in the inner, and the outer rushes to match it. You have shifted the entire foundation of your life from reaction to assumption. You are no longer someone life happens to. You are the one who happens to life, and this shift changes everything. It changes your relationships, your money, your health, your environment. Not because those things got better on their own, but because you got clear on who you are. And who you are is not someone hoping to succeed. You are success, you are wealth, you are the love, you are the joy, you are the clarity, you are the miracle. There is no future version of you that is better than the one you choose to embody right now. The only gap is belief, and you've closed that gap. You've shut the door to doubt. You've slammed the gate on hesitation. You've chosen your identity and made it your home. Every day you wake up and remember who you are. Every breath you take reinforces the truth. I am it. You do not wonder if things are coming. You know they've already been called. They're already in motion. They're already here. And as you sustain that feeling, sustain that vision, sustain that truth, the evidence multiplies. Not slowly, not eventually now, because there is no time delay in creation when you are fully aligned. You don't entertain the old story anymore. You don't listen to the voice that says, "Who do you think you are?" Because you know who you are. You are the proof, you are the power, you are the presence that calls things into being. You're not in the waiting room of life. You are on the throne writing the script. And the script has one theme, one direction, one tone, mastery. There is no place for weakness in you now. Not because you deny it, but because you've transformed it. You've alchemized the fear into fuel. You've transmuted pain into power. You've taken every version of yourself that once hesitated, and you've absorbed them into your current knowing. You are whole, you are full, you are unshaken, and because of that, nothing can stop you. What others call miracles, you call normal. What others call luck, you call law. What others marvel at, you walk in daily. Because you've made the decision, you've made the assumption, you've become the vessel, and now you reap. You don't need to push anymore. You don't need to strive. You flow. You glide. You expect. And because of that expectation, reality delivers. You don't compromise anymore. You don't shrink to fit into places you've outgrown. You don't lower your light to make others feel comfortable. You shine because you must. You radiate because it's your nature. You elevate because it's who you are. You don't take advice from doubt. You don't consult the old you. You don't retreat when things appear to contradict your vision. You rise higher. You double down. You stand firmer. And as you stand, you become the mountain that cannot be moved. You become the storm that does not waver. You become the presence that demands reality conform, and it does, because you're not hoping anymore. You're knowing. You're not asking. You're embodying. You're not looking for signs. You are the sign. Every thought you allow now is chosen. Every feeling is curated. Every word is intentional, because you understand the cost of misalignment. You understand the power of persistence. You understand the force of identity. You don't let the old thoughts stay long. You replace them instantly. You override them completely. You live by one law: I am what I say I am. And you have said, I am the best. I am without rival. I am the peak. I am the source. I am the master. I am the operant power. And because you've said it and felt it and lived from it, so it is, not later. Not tomorrow, now, always now. So now you stand at the center of your reality, not as a wanderer seeking direction, but as the one who gives it. You no longer search for signs. You create them. You no longer wait for doors. You are the gate. Every fiber of your being knows it's already done. You walk, speak, breathe, and exist from that place of certainty, and that certainty becomes substance, that assumption becomes form, that inner conviction becomes the world you live in. You are not becoming, you have become. You are not evolving into power. You are remembering that you are power, and from this remembrance you rise again, higher, freer, louder, unapologetically, because you finally know. No one is above you. No one is ahead of you. No one is greater than the you that knows who they are. And now that you know, nothing can ever be the same.